The cafeteria buzzed with the typical chaos of a high school lunch period. I still remember that day clearly, watching Abigail Matthews walk through those double doors. She was wearing a white summer dress that made her stand out among the sea of jeans and t-shirts. Her honey blonde hair caught the fluorescent light, creating a halo effect that seemed almost divine. That was ninth grade, and I, Jake Thompson, was just another awkward freshman trying to find my place. Little did I know that moment would set in motion events that would shape the next decade of my life. Abby, as everyone called her, wasn't just beautiful. She had this magnetic personality that drew people in. When she smiled, it felt like you were the only person in the room. Within weeks, we were talking between classes, sharing notes in biology, and texting late into the night. By sophomore year, everyone knew we were a couple. We were that perfect high school pair, the kind you see in movies. I played varsity baseball. She was on the cheerleading squad. Our lockers were next to each other, and we'd meet there between every class. My Letterman jacket looked better on her than it ever did on me. Looking back now, I wonder if I was just seeing what I wanted to see. The signs were there, but love has a way of blinding you to reality. Our relationship moved at what felt like a natural pace for high school sweethearts. We shared our first kiss behind the bleachers after a winning game. Our first, I love you, came during a summer night under the stars in my dad's pickup truck. And like many high school couples, we lost our virginity to each other on prom night. The holiday Inn wasn't exactly romantic, but we thought it was perfect. Those teenage years were a whirlwind of football games, study sessions, and stolen moments in parked cars. Everyone said we were meant to be together. Our parents joked about future grandchildren. Teachers smiled knowingly when they saw us walking hand in hand down the hallway. We even started talking about marriage in junior year, though we agreed to wait until after college. College, that's where things began to change, though I didn't realize it at the time. We ended up at different schools, but they were only 30 minutes apart. I thought we could handle the distance. After all, what was 30 minutes compared to our love? I got a part-time job at Walker's Market to help pay for gas and dates. Between classes, work, and baseball practice, my schedule was packed. But I made time for Abby. She was my priority. We'd meet up in the evenings, usually at her dorm since she had a single room. Her roommate had mysteriously dropped out after the first week. Looking back, I should have wondered about that. College opened up a new world for both of us. The familiar faces from high school were replaced by thousands of new people. Abby seemed to thrive in this environment. She was always telling me about new free NDS she'd made, new clubs she'd joined. I was proud of her for adapting so well. Sometimes I'd spot her across the quad, surrounded by people, always laughing. She had this way of making everyone feel special. I noticed she was usually with guys, but I didn't think much of it. After all, we were secure in our relationship. We had plans for the future. Every night, when we were together, she proved how much she loved me. Or at least, that's what I thought she was proving. After graduation, everything fell into place exactly as we'd planned. We both found jobs in our fields, me in finance, her in human resources. The wedding was everything we'd dreamed of during those late-night conversations in high school. Abby was radiant in her white dress, walking down the aisle towards me. Our parents cried, our friends cheered. It felt like the perfect beginning to our happily ever after. We bought a house in a nice suburb, started saving for the future. I worked hard, climbing the corporate ladder. Abby excelled in her career too, often working late to finish payroll. For nearly 6 years, I thought we had the perfect life. Then came the day that shattered everything I thought I knew. It started like any other day at the office. Liz from the mailroom dropped some files in my basket. One caught my eye. It was for an account managed by Will Barnes. Will had been in my graduating class, both high school and college. We weren't close friends, but we were friendly enough. As I skimmed through the file, I noticed a major error. The projections were off by almost $3 million. Will rushed into my office, urgently needing the file for a presentation. I pointed out the mistake, and he was visibly relieved. He thanked me profusely, saying I had saved his job. That Thursday, since Abby was working late as usual, I stuck to my normal routine. I went to Jake's bar for their famous half-pound burger and a couple of beers. Will walked in just as I was starting my second beer. He joined me at my booth, ordered a beer, and insisted on paying my tab. We talked about work, caught up on mutual acquaintances. Then he said something that made my blood run cold. "You're a nice guy, Jake. I've never understood why you put up with it." I had no idea what he meant. The confused look on my face must have told him as much. Will tried to leave, but I wouldn't let him. What followed was a conversation that would change my life forever. According to Will, my perfect high school romance hadn't been so perfect after all. 2 weeks after our senior prom, yes, that prom night, Will had walked into his cousin Hank's house. He found Hank and Abby together. They weren't studying. They weren't watching a movie. They were in bed. And when Will walked in, they didn't stop. They invited him to join. This became a regular thing whenever I was working at Walker's Market. When Hank started dating Aria Montgomery, Abby moved on to OT. Hers. We'll name names. Theo Ryland, Owen Parker. Sometimes individually, sometimes together. My stomach churned as Will continued his story. College hadn't changed anything. It had just given Abby more opportunities. She had her schedule memorized. Monday through Thursday, Tuesday through Friday. No classes on Wednesday. Her last class ended at 2 p.m. I was always at work. The pattern continued 2 or 3 times a week. All those study groups, all those club meetings. I felt sick. Well, wasn't done. "Most people were shocked when you two got married," he said. "They thought you must have known and been okay with it. Some people thought maybe you were into it. But nobody ever saw you with another girl. Abby, though, Abby was seen with lots of guys." I sat there, trying to process what I was hearing. My hands were shaking as I lifted my beer to my lips. Will looked at me with pity in his eyes. "I hate to be the one to tell you this," he said. "But if you didn't know then, you probably don't know about now. Thursday nights with Max and Luke Howard. Tuesday bowling nights with Ethan Clark. The world was spinning. Everything I thought I knew was crumbling around me." Will's voice seemed to come from far away. "I stopped being involved after you got married," he said. "A single woman is one thing, but a married woman." I stood up, my legs unsteady. "Thanks, Will," I managed to say, "for the burger, the beer, and for telling me." The drive home was a blur. Part of me wanted to believe Will was lying. But why would he? He knew I could verify everything he'd told me. If he was lying, we couldn't continue working together. The truth was we couldn't anyway. Not now that I knew about him and Abby. But that was the least of my concerns. 10 years. 10 years of lies. 10 years of betrayal. I lay in bed that night, pretending to be asleep when Abby got home. When she reached for me, her touch made my skin crawl. For the first time in our relationship, I felt nothing when Abby touched me. Nothing but disgust. The next morning, I knew what I had to do. It was time to end this facade of a marriage. But first, I needed proof. Undeniable, irrefutable proof. Because if there's one thing I'd learned, it was that Abby was very good at lying. And I wasn't about to let her lie her way out of this. I woke up early the next morning, my mind already racing with plans. The first call I made was to Liam Parker, an old friend from high school who now practiced corporate law. "I need a recommendation for a tough divorce lawyer," I said without preamble. The silence on the other end spoke volumes. "So you finally found out about Abby," he said quietly. His response confirmed my worst fears. Everyone had known except me. "Grant Foster," Liam said after a moment. "He's the best in the business. Tell him I sent you." Foster's office was in one of those gleaming downtown high-rise. Left early, parked a block from our house, opened my laptop, connected to the surveillance system, and watched. The evidence piled up quickly. 2 men on Tuesday night, 3 on Wednesday. Always younger guys. Always in our bed. The bed we bought together when we first got married. I called Foster. "Have the papers ready for Thursday," I said. "I want them served at exactly 5:45 a.m. Friday morning." "That's oddly specific," Foster noted. "Trust me," I replied. "It's perfect timing." While I waited, I stayed at a motel on the other side of town. Found a country western bar next door. Met some nice women who just wanted to dance. No strings attached. No complications. No lies. Jenna, Emma, and Kate became my temporary lifeline. Just friends who helped me remember what normal felt like, what trust felt like. The footage from Wednesday night sealed the deal. Clear video evidence of multiple partners. Clear audio of Abby making plans for future encounters. Everything a divorce lawyer could dream of. Foster had the papers drawn up by Thursday afternoon. I reviewed them carefully. Everything was in order. The stage was set. Friday morning, 5:55 a.m. I parked down the street from our house. Right on schedule, the front door opened. 2 young men stepped out. Abby appeared in the doorway to say goodbye. That's when they noticed the process server. He stepped forward, handed Abby the papers, walked away. I pulled up in front of the house, honked the horn to get her attention, waved goodbye, drove off. The papers included a letter from me. No discussions, no explanations, no reconciliation. It was over. Of course, Abby didn't accept that. The call started 15 minutes later. I let them all go to voicemail. 17 calls that morning alone. I informed my secretary not to put through any calls from her. Told security not to let her in the building. My colleagues rallied around me. They'd known too, I realized. Everyone had known. But now it was done. I was finally free. Or so I thought. I didn't realize then that Abby wasn't going to let me go without a fight. A fight that would turn our divorce from a simple legal proceeding into something much darker. Something that would test not just my resolve, but my very survival instincts. Because Abby had more than just a reputation to protect. She had secrets that went beyond simple infidelity. And she was willing to do anything to keep those secrets buried, even if it meant destroying both of us in the process. I should have known it wouldn't end quietly. Monday evening, I left work later than usual. The parking lot was nearly empty. That's when they grabbed me. 2 guys, the same ones I'd seen on the surveillance footage with Abby. "Don't make this difficult," one said. "Abby wants to talk. Since you're being stubborn about it, we're going to take you to her." They probably thought I was an easy target. Middle-aged guy in a suit. Saw from sitting behind a desk all day. They were wrong. But I had to think this through. If Abby was willing to go this far just to talk, what else might she do? They nudged me into my own car. Sat me between them. My briefcase on my lap. The drive to our house, my house now, was silent. Inside, Abby was waiting. "Sit him down," she ordered. "Make sure he stays there." Her face was different somehow. Harder. Colder. "We're not getting divorced, Jake." I tried to stand. They pushed me back down. "Stay still," one warned. "There are going to be some changes in our lifestyle," Abby announced. "Now that you know about my medical condition." I almost laughed. "Medical condition?" She nodded, completely serious. "I'm a nymphomaniac, Jake. Have been since high school. Since you took my purity." The absurdity of it struck me. "There's medication for that," I said. "I've tried them all," she replied. "They make me feel like a zombie. Besides, I like who I am." "I've never left you wanting, have I?" She moved closer. "I've spoiled you, Jake. You just can't keep up with my needs. So I found alternatives. But I always came back to you. Because I love you." She pulled out some papers. A postnuptial agreement. She'd thought this through. The terms were simple. She could have as many lovers as she needed. If I ever objected, I'd leave with nothing. "What do I get out of this?" I asked. "The same loving wife you've had for the past 6 years." Those were perfect years, weren't they? Until your ego got bruised. Using her full name, which she hated, I agreed to sign. Asked to review the document myself. They let me up. I placed my briefcase on the table, took the pen, read through the papers. Then I laughed, tore them up, threw the pieces at her, grabbed my briefcase, headed for the door. Her goons moved to stop me. Big mistake. The first one caught my briefcase in the face. Solid hit. The second one wasn't ready for my fist. Or the kick that followed. Years of pent-up rage exploded. I kept hitting, kicking, until Abby screamed, "Stop, or I'll shoot." She had a gun. Of course she had a gun. I pulled out my phone, dialed emergency, gave my name, my address, reported my wife was threatening me with a weapon. The operator told me to stay calm. Help was coming. Abby's face twisted with fury. "You idiot," she snarled. "When the cops get here, you'll be the one in cuffs. 2 witnesses saw you attack my friends. It'll be our word against yours." I laughed again. Clay and Joy saw these 2 pick me up at work, drag me into my car, bring me here against my will, hold me down when I tried to leave. That's kidnapping, Abby. False imprisonment. And now, threatening with a deadly weapon. You really want to play this game? She didn't listen. Neither did her friends. They all told their stories to the police. I spent the night in jail. But I had one call. I made it count. Called Grant. Told him everything. Asked him to work with Sterling. To get the evidence. To take action. Monday morning, Abby showed up for my bail hearing. She left in handcuffs. Her 2 friends were arrested by nightfall. Her lawyer called. Suggested I use the house as collateral for her bail. I hung up. Moved back into my house. Changed all the locks. Got a restraining order. The neighbors whispered. But I didn't care. The truth was out now. Everyone knew what had really happened. Not just the affairs, but the attempted kidnapping, the threats, the lies. My phone kept ringing. Friends, family, reporters. Everyone wanted to know the story. But I was done talking, done explaining, done trying to understand. Some stories don't need to be understood. They just need to end. And this one had. Saturday morning, I sat on my back porch, watched the sunrise, sipped my coffee. For the first time in months, I felt peace. The house was quiet. No more lies. No more pretending. No more betrayal. Just silence. And in that silence, I found something I thought I'd lost. Myself. The phone rang inside. Probably another reporter. Or maybe Abby's lawyer. I let it ring. Some calls don't need to be answered. Some questions don't need solutions. Some stories just need to be over. And this one was, finally, completely, over. I finished my coffee, went inside, started packing boxes. It was time to sell the house. Time to leave this neighborhood. Time to start fresh. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even. It's getting free. And I was finally free. Free from the lies. Free from the manipulation. Free from Abby. The morning air was crisp, full of possibility. I had no idea what came next. But for the first time in years, that didn't scare me. It excited me. Because whatever came next would be my choice. My life. My story. And this time, I'd write it myself. Without lies. Without betrayal. Without Abby. Just me. Starting over. One page at a time.